All right. Another episode of Chain Link Sports here. First scout. We got our first scout guest, Ty Blankmeyer. So Ty went to St. John's, played there, got drafted in the 36th round, 2016, by the Cincinnati Reds. He's now a scout for the Milwaukee Brewers. And Ty, you're a area scout, right, for the Northeast?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so is that just like New York, New Jersey, or like you're going like Pennsylvania, Connecticut, all over the place?
Yeah, so I'm New York. New York, New Jersey, all in New York and all in New England. So New York up to Maine,
Gotcha.
basically. New Jersey up to Maine. So all
Okay.
the way from Cape May to Orono, Maine. So like everything in between.
Gotcha. So when you finished up playing, so I kind of have two questions for you. Why did you choose scouting? And then what was the transition like and kind of your thought process, trying to transition into another career outside of playing?
So when I finished up playing, when I was with the Reds, I actually didn't choose scouting right away. What happened was um, I was given the opportunity to stay along with the Cincinnati Reds organization. I worked in player development as like just another AZL coach. I ran early work. I helped out with some video. I learned a lot of different things about the game. I was even driving players back and forth from where they were staying in the van that they provided.
Gotcha.
Something to stay in the game more than anything else. But during that time, I was able to learn from guys like Jose Nieves and Miguel Cairo, who were all with the Reds at that time, Lenny Harris. So during that time, I was just kind of just a sponge learning after I was playing. It was tough, but because you wanted to play. And then it was about 2 to 3 months into the AZL season, the Brewers had called me and, really not much of a connection there. Just, they might've just heard my name from somebody. And they asked if I wanted to get into scouting. And I said, I thought about it. And I said, this is a great opportunity because I can go back home to where I live in North Jersey and scout the Northeast.
Yeah.
And I just thought that perspective on the game is something I would have a lot of interest in, being that I've just been around the game my whole entire life. So that perspective, that new lens that the game had taught me, and is continuing to teach me, has been really cool. Just trying to get on that player evaluation side and getting to know each player, what makes them tick, how the tools grade out, that all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
it's been a really good learning opportunity for me, but it's been a really good perspective changer, what those scouts really do to kind of really grow our games. Because in my opinion, scouts are the backbone of our game. If you don't have scouts getting the right players with the right mindsets into our game, the players that are going to grow our game, what they're inputting and what scouts are doing to grow the game is, I think, doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that as a young scout. I'm saying that as a young scout that has seen some of these older scouts, what they've done to really put the game in a good spot.
Yeah. It's kind of hard though to kind of, you know, recognize all the work you guys do because everybody likes to see, what's directly in front of them, with the big name players and what's on TV. And you guys are, really the behind the scenes kind of people who bring in those big players that people might see on TV one day. So you're absolutely right. You guys do play a very big part in, how those players reach the major leagues.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think the one thing that's important is, the scouts. I think the biggest thing that people don't as a scout, you're evaluating, right?
Yeah.
You're not just evaluating the tools. You're evaluating the kind of mind the player has, the toughness the player has. And another way of doing that is, just by contacting people that know the player, that are with the player more. Because it's one thing to have all the God-given ability, but it's another thing to have the mind of what it takes to be a Major League Baseball player. And that's truly what's impressive, is when you go across that kind of mind that is going to allow them, to play over their ability.
Absolutely. So you're in scouting now. You go from playing to scouting. What was the biggest obstacle you had to face when you first started, or maybe the biggest lesson that you had to learn in order to be a good, effective scout?
Well, I think I'm constantly learning, and I think the biggest thing I learned is, it's a hard thing to do. It's really hard, because everything can make sense, and the kid cannot pan out or stuff like that. I mean, I haven't been in the business too long. This is my third year, but I'd say the hardest thing for me was just it's I would say it's twofold. I was saying evaluating tools with the 20/80 scale. So I had to
Right.
define my language, like what's a 30, what's a 40, what's a 50, what's a 60, what's a 70, what's an 80, and
Yeah.
so on. And I had to determine that, and I'm always trying to fine tune that. That initially was the hardest thing, you know. And I think the second hardest thing was just like how you're going to use your time effectively, because in the Northeast the biggest challenge is a lot of
Weather.
times you're yes, exactly. So how are you going to utilize your time effectively and most efficiently to give your organization the most advantageous look.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think that those were the two things um, that were the biggest challenge at first.
Okay, and real quick, so the 20/80 scale, is that something where it's like, for example, if a guy's throwing 98 to 101, that's like an 80, and if he's like 92 to 95, that's like a 65 or 70. Like are there just like benchmark numbers, or it's up to the scout really?
I think it's more. There are benchmark numbers, but I think it's more based on effectiveness, right? So I'll give you a better example, like because I think like people see like you. I mean, as a player, I know I've seen like a 93 mile per hour fastball or 95, and it just doesn't look the same out of the hand, whether it's harder or whether it's it's this 93 mile per hour fastball plays like it's 88, right? And
Right.
that could be a number of different things. And so I think that's important to value, like, and to look into like the different metrics that make that um, a type of scenario. But I think an easier way to say that is, okay, you have a 6'3" runner, and that's what is that? A 6'3" runner is really an 80. It's 80 runner. So 6'3", 60 would technically equal an 80 runner. However,
Okay.
um, that 6'3" runner, he can't steal a base. That speed doesn't play in the outfield. So is that 6'3" raw runner really a 80 runner?
Right.
And more like it's like an 80 raw runner with like maybe 50 effectiveness. So I think it's important to kind of look at it twofold, and say, hey, this guy does have this type of raw ability, but does it play in the game? Does it play on defense? Does it play on
Yeah.
offense? Does it play on the bases? So I think for me, it's something I constantly challenge myself with.
Okay. And then now when you are, looking at players and judging, their effectiveness and their numbers, what what are like some skills beyond the physical that you're looking at that might make a kid stand out? Like he may not be like hitting the ball 450 feet, but you could see that, this hitter, this pitcher has got a future.
Um, some skills I would say, like, so for a hitter and a pitcher, I'll say the one thing, if they like they have fluid, like organic movements, like it just comes easier to them. They're not there's not I mean, effort is one thing, but like they're operating in a pretty easy manner. It's just fluid, and it's as they gain strength and maturity, it's just going to keep getting better. It's easy to project on. I think just the movements, the efficiency of the movements of the players is one thing. um, for hitters, one thing it's really a guy that just has a feel for the barrel. It's just consistently finds the barrel,
Right.
on a on a on a on a fairly easy basis. I think that's a really good thing to look at. And another thing is just like, I mean, you go to a game, just a guy who handles himself a little differently. So a guy that's like an energy giver, he makes people around him better. There's some leadership qualities, if you really want to start getting into that stuff. So that's another thing.
Right. And now on the flip side, what's like one of the biggest turnoffs that, you could, so like you might like this kid. This is maybe like your third or fourth time seeing him. And then he might, throw his bat or might, take someone out on his coach or teammate. And then like maybe that's something that, you just kind of close up, your book and then you walk away. So like what's like a turnoff for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody's human. So with that kind of thing, I like to give them some leeway. However, if you see it more than once and it's like, you're eye opening, like, is he listening to anybody?
Yeah.
I think that would be like making them same mistake, not physically, but mentally over and over again. You're like, why can't you make an adjustment there? So that's an eye opening thing. Somebody that, you find out doesn't really treat his teammates, was not a good teammate. That's an eye opening thing because you want to play in the big leagues. That's 160, maybe it's not this year. It's not 160, but whatever, you want to be, you want to put guys in the system that are easy to be around or fun to be around. So I think just being a good teammate and stuff like that, like a bad teammate is eye opening to me,
Yeah.
and you have to, at the same time, when you say bad teammate, I think that's something you have to define as well, because, everyone has definition of a bad teammate. Like some people would think Michael Jordan's a bad teammate, where, I'd argue that dude was a winner. He made people better, even though he wasn't,
Yeah.
the nicest guy at times,
Yeah.
so, you have to really define what a bad teammate is. But I'm saying that is one thing I'm just weary of. It's
Yeah.
not a complete turnoff, but you make note of for sure.
Like, has there been a case where like you were totally in on this kid and you're talking to the higher ups, being like, "Hey, listen, this is somebody we might want to be considering taking," but then you're like, "Listen, he's got the skill, but I'm not sure how he's going to be in the clubhouse ever." Like, has there been any situations like that for you as of right now?
For me, firsthand, no, but I've heard that sort of story before.
Right.
And you always hear the success story. So I've heard a lot of people speak, even college coaches. They usually, like, when it's coming from, they're speaking from their gut, they're usually pretty close to accurate every time. So
Gotcha.
I don't have a firsthand experience of.
Okay, gotcha. So last question I want to ask you: what experiences as a player, college, professional, or even just throughout your entire life, has kind of transitioned over to scouting? Whether it's like a mindset thing or just something you learned from your playing days that has kind of helped you been able to acclimate yourself to your new job as a scout?
Um, I think just playing and not being very. I mean, I say I wasn't very good. I was just not. I wasn't that physically gifted, so I had to really
Okay.
scrap and claw. So I think realizing how hard the game is something that has really helped me, because you go in and you see, and if you're gonna look and you're gonna go watch a player and you're gonna go see him, you have to understand that this game is hard. It's a hard game. It's a simple game, but it's hard. So I think that is one thing that I always keep in mind, having played and not having been that good. I think the other thing is my first professional batting practice, I was exposed to some real raw power, and I think just being around those sort of players, like I was teammates with Taylor Trammell, and
Yeah.
who's a big time prospect with the Padres, but and Nick Senzel was another big, like being around those kind of players. It kind of gave me a lens of like, ooh, this is different now.
Yeah.
So it kind of was able to, I was able to draw to that pretty quickly when I was playing. And just being in the dugout at St. John's with my dad from a young age, seeing players across from them that played in the big leagues, like just seeing how they did it, how they went about it, how they made plays, and
Yeah.
approached the game. All that, like, to reach back and think about that has helped me tremendously.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think a lot of people who grow up around baseball and like, but like when you grow up and watch like high caliber talent at a young age, because like you really absorb a lot more. I mean, because even St. John's, like that's a good Division One program where you see how those guys like go about their business, how they warm up, how they hit. Like once game starts, I mean, like it's all business. Like some guys are jokesters, but you get more of a feel for the game. I think.
Sure, sure. No, and I agree. I mean, it's like people always say it's like the perfect metaphor to life, and I really believe that. But I think what you come to find out is it's a lot of the people that I've come across that are good baseball players and played in the major leagues or have played in the major leagues or playing or whatever. They're like I keep going back to this. Their mind is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It's sharp. They have ability to be present. They're not thinking like negatively. They make people around them better. So that's like being around Joe Panic, being around a lot of players. It's their mind has elevated them.
Yep. Well, Ty, that's all I got, and I appreciate you coming on. I think it's a pretty unique perspective you got. Coming from playing right from scouting and like all like the new kind of perspectives you're seeing now as a scout. So thanks for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Signing off.